Breaking news, President Obama's health care plan is upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court. In a landmark ruling, the court upheld the individual insurance requirement, the heart of the health care plan. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Leon Bibb. The High Court rejected arguments that Congress went too far in requiring most Americans to have health insurance or pay a penalty. It is a story that the entire nation is following quite closely. Here's ABC's Karen Travers. She joins us from outside the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington, detailing the latest.
Good afternoon. After months of suspense, the Supreme Court has issued a landmark ruling, one that will have broad implications for millions of Americans and the presidential campaign. It's a major victory for President Obama. In a monumental 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court upheld the individual mandate. That's the heart of the President's Affordable Care Act. Chief Justice John Roberts sided with the liberal justices and wrote today's decision. During oral arguments in March, the conservative Roberts seemed to take a skeptical view of the mandate as a slippery slope.
Can the government require you to buy a cell phone because that would facilitate responding when you need emergency services?
But ultimately, Roberts, writing for the majority, said that Americans can't be forced to buy health insurance, but they can be penalized or taxed for choosing not to. The Affordable Care Act is the signature legislation of President Obama's administration, and by far the most controversial. On March 23, 2010, the president signed the law with great fanfare.
Health care reform is no longer an unmet promise. It is the law of the land.
But before the ink was dry, the legal fight was underway. 26 states filed suit, arguing that Congress did not have the authority to force an individual to buy something. Americans are deeply skeptical about the health care law. A new ABC News Washington Post poll found that only 1/3 have a favorable opinion of it. And a poll from March found that 2/3 of Americans wanted the Supreme Court to strike down either the entire law or the individual mandate. Republicans say today's ruling sets the stakes for November's election, and the only way to get rid of Obamacare now is to vote the president out of office. Reporting live from the Supreme Court, I'm Karen Travers. Now back to you.
Many thanks, Karen. When President Obama was pushing his health care plan, no one became more connected to the plan than a Medina woman named Natoma Canfield.
So you want to know why I'm here, Ohio? I'm here because of Natoma.
Canfield was thrust into the spotlight when she wrote the president telling him that as a cancer survivor, she could no longer afford her health insurance premiums. She wrote she lived in fear of getting sick and losing her childhood home. Her story became the president's rallying cry. He read her letter to insurance company executives. Then a week later, she was diagnosed with leukemia. Now, 2 years later, Natoma is cancer-free.
My oncologist is very happy. So, I'm happy too. I'm starting to have a life.
Because of her finances, she ended up on Medicaid and was able to keep her home. She received several phone calls over the weekend from the White House just to follow up with her pending the Supreme Court's decision, which came today. Right now, we're working on the gathering reaction to the Supreme Court ruling. Attorney General Mike DeWine of Ohio says he's disappointed by the decision, and the matter will now be fought in the political arena as the main issue of the presidential campaign, he said. Metro Health Medical Center says it will help them advance their mission of providing care for all, regardless of ability to pay. We'll have more on this later today on air and online at newsnet5.com.